Recently, I've been getting the Three Rings of Death on my JTAG Xbox, and I had suspected that it dealt with the overheating problem because, for the most part, I could turn it on, it would boot up into the dashboard, no issues. But when I started to play a game, it would just freeze or shut off. So I kind of assumed that it was an overheating problem, and I tried to circumvent replacing the thermal paste by doing the little overheat trick where I think it's you overheat the GPU, but you keep your fan on the CPU in hopes that the thermal paste, whatever's left of it that was originally put there, will kind of heat up really good when you overheat your Xbox and kind of bond back together. So I did that and it worked for a few days, but then again I was playing Dead Rising 2 off the record and it froze up about 45 minutes into the game. So I decided it was time to go ahead and, get it done with, replace the thermal paste just to make sure that wasn't the issue, was causing the overheat. I tried to avoid it because it's kind of a pain to do. It took me probably about 20 minutes, but I really didn't want to mess with it. I didn't want to risk messing up any other components. So I took apart my Xbox, got to my motherboard, and when I looked at the heatsink off, I could see the mess from the stock thermal paste. Probably 75% of it were off the CPU and the GPU. What remained of it was around the chips, kind of spread out, and I could see that it wasn't getting very good connectivity. So a couple weeks back, I bought the Arctic Silver kit for cleaning, your CPU, cleaning it off, and then applying the new thermal paste. What I ended up using were some Q-tips with the solution to clean it off, as well as some cotton pads to clean it off. Apparently, you're supposed to let the first solution I put on sit for about 30 seconds. I didn't do that. I wasn't really paying attention to the instructions. So you see me immediately wiping it off after I put it on. Don't do that if you decide to go this route. Also, I don't think I did the greatest job cleaning the areas because there was a ton of thermal paste and it was getting stuck in between the little chips surrounding the CPU and the GPU, and I couldn't really get into all those crevices, but I think I got it cleaned enough. I guess the main point was just to clean off the GPU and CPU units, and I guess a little thermal paste won't hurt, because the thermal paste Microsoft puts on there originally is non-conductive, so I assumed it wouldn't hurt anything. The new stuff I'm going to put on, you'll see later in the video, it's made of silver. It's like 99% silver, I think, so you want to keep it off the other components because it's going to conduct. But yeah, so basically I cleaned the solutions. There are two different solutions. One is to clean it off initially. Two is to prep it for the new thermal paste. I also cleaned off the bottom of the heat sink, just to make sure I could get the best possible connection. And it's kind of tedious, but I just tried using solution, cleaning it best as I could. You got to remember when you're applying the new thermal paste, you just want to apply a tiny bit, because if you apply too much, it's a mess getting it back off and then reapplying new stuff. So you'll see where I just applied a tiny bit, and then I used a bent up note card to kind of spread it around. Probably not the best job spreading it around, but I just wanted to make sure, one, that I didn't put too much on it, and two, that I got much of the chip covered as possible. Then lastly, I put everything back together. I used the overheat tricks so I can make sure the new thermal paste heated up to a high temperature and it bonded with the heat sink. Let it cool down, turned it back on, and it worked, and I played Dead Rising 2 again for another hour, no issues. Also noticed my temperatures were about 5 degrees cooler on my CPU. So I can tell it's doing its job better than the stock thermal paste from Microsoft. So I know this is probably not the best example of cleaning off your GPU and CPU in your 360. I just wanted to show you what I did, and maybe it will come in handy if you ever decide you need to do this little procedure as well.